Underground Podcast. I am your host, Phil. Along with me, as always, is my trusty co-host, the best, the fastest researcher in the West, Camille. How are you, Camille? Welcome
Good, thank
back.
you. How are you? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you said as always, but I wasn't here last week. Sorry, I was,
That
I was out not feeling
that's
well.
yeah, that's fine. We had a great conversation with, or I should say, there was no other person. I had a good conversation with Dr. Alex Balkian, who is running for Congress. You were watching the show anyway. So, yeah, great guest. Wish him all the best luck. It's a tough district. I think he's got the right idea of how to go about it, and it's something I think we've talked about it a lot on the show in terms of like how do California Republicans win in California and start flipping blue districts. I think he's probably one of the few candidates out there who I think has a actual understanding of how he has to go about that and how he has to talk to people. So it was refreshing. It was refreshing to hear him talk about how he understands, like, I need to talk to people like they're Californians, like they're real people, and
Yeah,
not just because I'm a Republican, just go out there and, talk about Trump and MAGA and all that stuff. I don't even think Trump came up basically at all during the whole podcast. So,
it
um,
was a great episode. Like you said, I was watching. I was in the comments. I was bummed that I wasn't on it. He is super super smart, and if you haven't watched it, please check it out because it was really great episode, and he had very like common sense, very intelligent things to say, well researched.
mhm.
I very much appreciated it.
Yeah, well, it helps when you're a practicing physician. So you kind of got to be a little smart to be one of those guys.
Pretty smart.
All right. So tonight we are going to this will be like the first of a couple episodes because it is proposition season. And every general election, we as Californians, we get bombarded with a number of propositions that propose to change the Constitution, change laws, California Constitution, I should say. And they all have varying degrees of arguments and titles and words and slogans and all that stuff. So, our goal with these episodes is to kind of break down the propositions. We're doing 3 tonight, and we'll probably do the rest of them over the series leading up to November. So, stay tuned.
We have 10.
Because
Is there
I
10
think
so far?
it's 10. It's going to be 10. So, there may be one episode we got to cram in 4, but tonight we're doing 3. And yeah, it's I found that these are our listeners really like these because they like to tune in and be like, what the heck am I voting on? I have no idea. Can you just go ahead and like explain this to me? Because I don't know. Yes,
That's
no.
what I'm hoping to get from you tonight.
Well, I'm gonna try.
I'm just kidding. I researched.
You did a good amount of research. I was looking at the show notes. Yeah, and on this show, we don't necessarily tell you one way or another. It's always been the motto of this podcast is we give you the information. We give you the information to figure out, like, do I support this? Do I not support this? Because there's people who follow this show and are listeners of the show who are on different parts of the political spectrum, just enjoy listening to the show. So we're not going to sit here and be like, oh, you should definitely vote yes on this or definitely vote no on that. We'll give you the information and let you figure it out from there. But as always, disclaimer that I'd love to tell listeners, especially California, like there's so much information to take in. Like if you're serious about being a part of this process, being an active voter, all that stuff, take time like to actually sit down with like the materials they send you, do your research, look at the candidates you're voting on, look at their stances. I know a lot of people just kind of go like, I'm Republican, so I'm just going to vote R down the ballot. I'm just going to support whoever they support and just vote the way they want me to vote. You could do that. That's absolutely fine. If that's your prerogative and you just want to vote the party's way. But I found personally that there'll be stuff that I look at and maybe I don't agree with the party on which way they land on it. So, yeah, that's always something I've been saying for a long time is take your time, look at all the materials, read them. Camille and I always have our DMs open on Instagram. So I get questions all the time. Feel free to kind of reach out and be like, hey, I don't really understand this. Can you give me a little bit better understanding? Camille said she loves answering those types of questions. So if we could direct all questions
What?
towards her, Just, she loves answering those types of questions and giving you feedback.
So what happens is if I get a question like that, I screenshot it and I send it to you.
And then I answer it, and then you just copy my answer and just send it back.
Teamwork.
Teamwork makes the dream work. Okay, so we're going to be doing 3 propositions tonight. Like I said, we're going to be doing 36, 32, and 2. Probably the biggest one we're going to spend the most time on is Prop 36. But before we get started, since it is a presidential election time, and one of the candidates running is from California, I'm introducing a new segment that I don't know if we'll be doing weekly, but I like to call it the cringy Kamala moment of the week. So are you ready for
it's only going to be her?
Is only going to be her? Yeah,
it's only going to be her cringe. It's not like cringy political moment. It's just cringy Kamala.
For now, maybe we'll extend it after the election. It'll just be cringy. That's actually a good idea. I like that. Maybe after the election, we'll do cringy moment.
Well, we kind of talked about this before, which then you actually did like a reel or a live on or something, but because even conservatives have very cringy things that they say and believe. And
yeah, I think we're onto something. But this week we're doing cringy Kamala moment of the week.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
That's our soundbite leading into it. So this week, if you didn't know, Kamala has a favorite snack food. Did you know what her favorite snack food is?
I do know. Yes.
Doritos. Because of this stop, right? So this is Kamala trying to figure out, what do the normal people eat at a local gas station convenience store, trying to act as natural as someone who's worth millions of dollars and is vice president of the United States could. So I like how she's making what's in there? Doritos.
Oh, Dougie, there they are. Yeah, thank you.
I know you want those. What do you get? For beef jerky? Can I go get it?
I do, and this is my go-to, the original nacho cheese.
That's good.
What do you like? What are you gonna get?
Get some peanuts or cashews or something.
That's a normal person thing to get.
You're gonna load up.
How is debate club going?
Well, haven't had it today. One day at a time. One day at a time.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
I like root beer. Do you like Diet Coke?
I think this is my favorite moment. This guy's face right here. He's just like, what is going on? What is this circus that I'm literally just standing here? I just showed up to work. So that's the cringy Kamala moment of the week. Hope
everybody talk about it.
Oh, I forgot the stinger one more time. Cringy Kamala moment of the week.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
Have you seen those TikTok dances? I mean, they're dumb, but people just all over TikTok play that little remix.
Yeah, it's like a remix now. People are doing it.
Right. It's catchy.
Well, first off, I've never heard anyone pronounce Doritos that way. Doritos. I've never heard the emphasis on Doritos like that. The other guy, that was the weirdest thing that he could have said, like, oh, I'm just going to get some peanuts and cashews. Like you're in a gas station full of fun treats and you're like, I'm going to get some peanuts and cashews. Not like a candy bar, not like chips, not anything like that.
Are they just trying to make her like she's just a normal person? Is that what the point of this is? Is like, look, she's just down to earth and she's just like you and she eats Doritos.
I think that's what they were going for here was the
sorry,
Here she is
Doritos.
at Sheetz if you don't know what Sheetz is a gas station in Pennsylvania, like on the East Coast. They don't have them out here. And she stopped by with her old campaign, and there was a big photo shoot, and she looked like so out of place and unnatural as to like what she was actually picking up. Like I saw a lot of memes that were like, "Is this what the poors eat? I don't understand. Is this what's a
Does she have a
Doritos?"
bus? Like, does she have a campaign bus?
I'd imagine she has a campaign bus.
Would you think if Doritos are her, I'm sorry, Doritos are her go-to, that it would be like fully stocked with Doritos?
Yeah, if she loves Doritos that much, like why doesn't she have a bus fully stocked of Doritos? We also got to hear what her nickname for her husband is Dougie.
Dougie. Little
Dougie.
Dougie.
Oh, that's sweet.
I'm gonna get a little dog named Dougie
Dougie.
with a
They
U.
they have a weird relationship, those two. I don't know how they feel. Like, but anyway, that's not the point of tonight's episode. I just thought it was funny because I was like, it's cringy, and you know what? We live in a crazy world. It's weird. Let's laugh at it a little bit. So, on to more serious topics. Let's start off with the first topic for tonight, which is Prop 36. If you don't know what Prop 36 is, that's fine, because if you're not political nerds like us, you don't keep up with what are the different props and what the numbers are. So Prop 36 is the proposition that has been put on the ballot for November, which is effectively going to reform Prop 47. And if you know anything about Prop 47, first off, that's good. But I'm going to give you a little bit of a refresher on what Prop 47 was. It was passed in 2014. Personal story, I was actually working as a legal intern at the San Diego District Attorney's Office when it passed. And when it went into effect, and it was interesting to see the district attorneys back then predict how horrible this bill was going to be, and just like what an absolute mess it was. Like everybody said the same thing about Prop 47. They were like, this is going to be horrible. It's going to, we're resentencing, letting a ton of people out. Like, this is just so bad for California. We can't do our jobs. And they were right back in 2014. So Prop 47, it was initiated November 4th, 2014. It was approved. So a yes vote supported classifying certain crimes as misdemeanors instead of felonies unless the defendant had prior convictions for murder, rape, certain sex offenses, or certain gun crimes, allowing resentencing for those currently serving a prison sentence for any of the offenses that the initiative reduced to misdemeanors, and creating the Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Fund to receive appropriations based on savings from the initiative. Kind of misleading.
Very.
So the question was, did Prop 47 cause an increase in criminal activities? The Public Policy Institute of California released a report that found a relationship between Prop 47 and a rise in larceny thefts, especially thefts from motor vehicles. Researchers found no relationship between violent crimes and Prop 47. We estimate that Prop 47 led to a rise in the larceny theft rate of about 135 per 100,000 residents, an increase of close to 9% compared to the 2014 rate, the report stated. The PPIC utilized a synthetic control group to approximate the state's crime rate, blah, 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 blah. Morgan Hill Police Chief, president of the California Police Chief Association, responds saying that the PPIC's conclusions are consistent with what police chiefs across the state have seen since 2014. So, Prop 47, it's been the bane of our existence, sort of for the past 10 years, precisely 10 years. And it has sort of, there's been debate back and forth whether or not it has had a huge effect on crime. Based on what it did, I would say it definitely had an effect on crime, especially with larceny and theft. We've been seeing in California, the smash and grabs have gotten out of control. During COVID, they got even worse. I would say smash and grabs probably were the final straw, or if not the final straw, along with COVID for downtown San Francisco. Like, downtown San Francisco is basically dead because of smash and grabs and all this petty theft. And then along with COVID, which shut everybody down. So this isn't the first time. Prop 36 is not the first time we've tried to reform Prop 47. In 2020, there was Criminal Proposition 20. would have made specific types of theft and fraud crimes, including firearm theft, vehicle theft, and unlawful use of a credit card, chargeable as misdemeanors or felonies rather than misdemeanors. The ballot initiative would have also established 2 additional types of crimes in state code, serial crime and organized retail crime, and charged them as wobblers, crimes chargeable as misdemeanors or felonies. Okay, so what did the measure do? We kind of already went over that. Permitted resentencing for those serving a prison sentence for any offenses that the initiative reduced to misdemeanors. Under Prop 47, about 10,000 inmates were eligible for resentencing. Required a review of criminal history and risk assessment of individuals before resentencing. Created a Safe Neighborhoods and Schools Fund. Distributed funds from safe neighborhoods and school as follows: 25% to the Department of Education, 10% to the Victim Compensation and Government Claims Board, and 65% to the Board of State and Community Correction. What crimes were affected? Shoplifting, where the value of property stolen does not exceed $950. So that's one that everybody knows. Everybody knows the $950. That's the big number, is $950. It just kind of goes down the same thing.
I don't. Okay, wait. I want to talk about that for a second because I don't fully understand that.
Right.
So if I go and steal $950 worth or $949 whatever worth of clothing from a store, and then if I go to the grocery store and steal a bunch of meat, or are these things combined, or is this 2 different?
They are, as I understand it, they are 2 separate offenses. Because you
So I
committed
could
crimes to 2 separate things.
I could do this all day long.
Right.
And have like full on outfits with shoes and like be feeding my family for free because I'm just going to go like hit up a retail center and then get to that grocery store. And on my way home, hit up another grocery store and like, we're good.
So here's where I think people and the noise gets it wrong is California didn't legalize theft under $950. A lot of people, pundits will say, oh, it's basically legal for you to steal under $950, so everyone can just go out and steal stuff. The issue is district attorneys and police have limited resources, and they don't want to waste their time and resources on stuff that won't go anywhere. So by reclassifying any theft under $950, basically it's not worth it to police to book them, to arrest them, for DAs to charge them, because a lot of times in a lot of these cities prior to COVID and before it got really bad, like San Francisco, they would just dismiss a lot of these misdemeanors. The DA would be like, look, we're just not going to pursue this stuff. It's not worth it. They're low level offenses. So it didn't legalize it, but we have limited resources. And I remember I got in an argument, I forget, a while back with somebody and about Prop 47. And they said, well, the police should just do their job. I'm like, okay, the police have a lot on their plate. District attorneys have a lot on their plate. And if you're going to try and charge someone with theft under $950, and then it goes to the district attorney and then it gets dismissed anyway, you've wasted all that time drawing up all that paperwork, and at the end of the day it just gets dismissed anyway. Are you going to spend as much time, if you're a police officer, on these crimes? Are you a district attorney? Are you going to spend this much time on these crimes? Probably not, because it's going to go nowhere. So that's sort of the issue that California is facing, is that because it's a misdemeanor and they get dismissed so easily, that's why people just really aren't following up on it, and no one's really cracking down on it.
Well, and aren't they discouraging the employees from going after these people too? Because the employees end up usually getting hurt or could possibly get hurt. So it's just like everyone just kind of stands there. And I'm not saying that in a negative way, like, oh, those people are terrible, but everyone, like, they're just like, what am I supposed to do?
Right. And I think it's probably an insurance and employee issue. Like, they don't want people getting hurt on the job. So they're like, look, let them take the stuff. We don't want to pay for your medical bills and for you getting hurt in workers' comp. So just let them go. It's cheaper to just let them take the product than pay for your workers' comp. And even security, a lot of security isn't armed security, or they don't really have any authority to do anything. So they just kind of step aside and are like, I'm not going to get injured for this stuff, when the police and the DAs don't care. So one person who pushed Prop 47, not surprising, George Gascon, who is currently the Los Angeles district attorney, who I just saw a poll today. He's actually behind Nathan Hodgman for district attorney down up in Los Angeles. He at that time was San Francisco district attorney. He was pushing it really hard. And they referred to it as the Safe Neighborhood in Schools Act. So this is where ballot language can get a little confusing. And again, this is why we tell you to research this stuff. Don't just take anyone's word for it. But that's not the official name, but that was sort of like the unofficial name of like, that's how they advertised it, was Safe Neighborhoods and Schools, which sounds great, doesn't it? I mean, safe neighborhoods and
Right.
schools, like sure, that
Of course.
who wouldn't vote for safe neighborhoods and schools? That'd be like saying save, little children and puppies. Like who wouldn't vote to save little children and puppies? Other officials, not surprising. Gavin Newsom at the time was lieutenant governor. He supported it. This was shocking. U.S. Senator Rand Paul supported it at the time, probably because he's more libertarian leaning and thought this was like more low-level nonviolent crimes.
Right.
George Gascon, who we went over. Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House, was also a supporter of it. The city of Pasadena was a supporter of it. Your usual cast of characters from ACLU to the California Federation of Teachers, every union under the sun supported it. Individuals included Jay-Z supported it, Brad Pitt, John Legend, Cameron Diaz, Demi Moore, and Michael Moore. So there you go. Because if you ever listen to what celebrities say about politics, I worry about how you're voting if you're listening to what celebrities tell you. So that's basically the background of Prop 47, which I think is important to get an idea of like maybe you're listening to this and having like I have no idea what Prop 47 is. What the heck are you talking about? So that was Prop 47, and that was passed back in 2014. Now onto the bill that is coming up this November. Prop 36 is called the Drug and Theft Crime Penalties and Treatment Mandated Felonies Initiative. This will be on your ballot. If you're a Californian, doesn't matter what city or county you're in, this is a statewide proposition. This will be on your ballot this November. So for a lot of people who are asking, what is Prop 36? Prop 36 is making major changes to Prop 47. It's not repealing Prop 47, but it is making major changes. A yes vote supports making changes to Prop 47, including classifying certain drug offenses as treatment mandated felonies. And as I understand it, a treatment mandated felony is basically if it involves drugs, you can opt to go to treatment and then successfully complete that treatment, and then the felony will be dismissed. Or if you don't go to treatment, then it's punishable up to 3 years in prison. Choice is yours. Increasing penalties for certain drug crimes by increasing sentence lengths and level of crime, requiring courts to warn individuals convicted of distributing illegal drugs of their potential future criminal liability if they distribute deadly drugs like fentanyl, heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamine, and increasing sentences for theft based on the value of the property stolen. So that's Prop 36 in a nutshell. Any thoughts before I continue to ramble on?
I'll let you ramble on.
Continue to ramble on. Got it. Okay, those in support, lots of mostly Republicans, but the Republican Party of California supports it. This is interesting, and we're going to show a video in a second regarding this. A lot of Democrats are now all of a sudden coming out and supporting Prop 36. State Senator Melissa Hurtado, Dave Min, Josh Newman, Susan Rubio, Tom Umberg, Jasmine Baines. Vince Fongs is a Republican. He supports it, who is now in Congress, right? He won his special, so now he's in Congress. Stephanie Nguyen and a whole bunch of other people. San Francisco Mayor London Breed supports it, so that's how far down San Francisco has fallen. San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria supports it, which I just learned today. San Jose Mayor Matt Mahan.
Who was it that like a media outlet put out that this is supported by white supremacists. Did you see that?
I did not see that, but I
It was on Twitter X today, and or last night maybe, and it was like it's like this is supported by white supremacists, and then somebody else like reposted a bunch of photos of all these like diverse Democrats who are supporting it. I'm sorry, I have a fly. This is fun.
we have an extra guest on the podcast.
We
tonight.
do.
So other union. Oh, so this was interesting. Corporations, Target, Walgreens, and Walmart are all big supporters. Unions include District Attorneys Association, Police Chiefs Association, retailers, state sheriffs, California Business Roundtable, California Grocers Association. So it's a crisscross of people who are supporting this, which is pretty interesting to see. It's created kind of like dividing lines amongst Democrats. Some opponents who are Democrats, like State Representative Mia Bonta, wife of Rob Bonta, who's the Attorney General, who will likely be running for governor soon. Assembly Speaker Robert Rivas, Alex Lee, everyone's favorite politician running from his mom's basement.
Basement dweller.
Everyone's favorite politician still living in his mom's basement. Political parties, obviously California Democratic Party and the ACLU and all these other people. There was something I want to see. Okay, so top donors supported the committee, the yes on Prop 36, include Walmart, who donated $2.5 million, Target, who donated $1.5 million, Home Depot donated $1 million, California Business Roundtable donated $370,000, and 7-Eleven kicked in $300,000. So obviously, I mean, it's not surprising that those stores do support this because they are probably the biggest victims of what's been going on under Prop 47. I mean, if you live here in San Diego, just go to the Mission Valley Target and you can't buy deodorant without like ringing a little bell or like pressing a button and having someone come and like unlock the deodorant, which is absolutely bonkers. I feel bad.
So ridiculous.
I feel bad for those Target employees who have to run around all day opening up like every single thing so that people can get their deodorant or their shampoo. So that's Prop 36. It's going to be on your ballot. Now, as I said, this is kind of an interesting... Prop 36 has had a rocky road to get where it is. Sheriff Bianco was on. He was talking a lot about Prop 36. Democrats, for a while, have been doing everything they can to stop Prop 36 from being on the ballot, or at least watering it down or stopping people from voting for it. The latest poll I saw was like 56% of people were in favor of Prop 36. So, conservatively, I think it's probably going to pass. There's probably a good amount of undecided people. But as we get closer, they'll start ramping up all the advertising. And they for some reason, well, I mean, I have a theory, and I'll save it for the end. Why Democrats like Gavin Newsom have been opposing Prop 36 this entire time has been really interesting. They drafted those 11 bills, which we talked about with Sheriff Bianco, which included what are called poison pill provisions, meaning if Prop 36 passed, all those bills would have not gone into effect. Why, you might ask, why would people put such a provision in law? And I will explain to you, it's politics. It's straight up politics. It's so they could run campaign ads up until the election saying, if you vote for Prop 36, it will undo these 11 bills on criminal justice. And they'll be like dark and ominous and black and white. And they'll be like, is that what you want for California, to make California less safe? Vote no on Prop 36. I mean, it's almost a perfect impression of how they would have done it. They might steal it, actually. They might just steal this clip.
I was wondering if you were working with them, honestly.
Yeah, maybe.
Very convincing.
Maybe I've already seen the demos of it. But yeah, that would be the politics of it. Why they would want you to vote no on Prop 36 is to basically scare you into voting no, because they'd be like, well, we already have all these bills, but if you vote yes, which is political blackmail, why don't you just do what's best for Californians, right?
Right.
Like, if you care so much about this issue and you want to write all these bills that address these issues, why do you care if Prop 36 passes? It's what's best for Californians. Don't you want to help? Why are you blackmailing Californians over crime? So that's interesting to see. But now that Prop 36 is on the ballot and it's going to go forward, it's been interesting seeing the split of Democrats who were all against it. We're all trying to kill it. Now there's like a huge rift between Democrats. Like there's the Newsom camp and then there's the other camp who are in support of it. And we do have a video from KMPH. I don't know which local news, Fox News that is. But it basically talks about how California Democrats are fighting over this issue. So before we get started, do you have any thoughts? I feel like I've been rambling a lot.
Yeah, that's fine. I have no thoughts. I don't think.
You're just sitting here
I just
fighting off that fly.
nodding my head.
3 more ranking Democrats in California have announced their support today for Proposition 36. The state GOP-backed ballot measure increases sentences for certain drug and theft crimes.
Fox 36 reporter Rich Rodriguez explains why the mayors of San Jose and Elk Grove and the DA of Sacramento County now want it passed.
A coalition of Democratic elected officials throw their support behind Proposition 36. If passed, it stiffens penalties for drug and theft crimes and classifies certain drug offenses as treatment-mandated felonies.
By requiring those who need treatment to get treatment, we will save lives. We will help bring our homeless neighbors indoors.
Proposition 36 would make changes to Prop 47, approved by voters 10 years ago. It would increase sentences for theft on the value of property stolen. A person with 2 prior theft convictions would face a felony charge the 3rd time.
We can't afford to see another person die on the streets. We cannot afford to see another small business close down permanently because of retail theft. We cannot afford to bury another child because of fentanyl poisoning.
Supporters of Prop 36 have raised close to $9 million. The top donors are Walmart, Target, and Home Depot.
We don't just seek to punish, far from it, but we must seek to prevent these thefts in a meaningful way. And that starts by creating clear, fair, and certain consequences.
Prop 36 is supported by the California Republican Party, the California DAs, and state sheriffs associations. Rich Rodriguez, Fox 26 News.
Okay. So there's sort of a little bit more background, more Democrats in favor of it. What are your thoughts so far?
I'm glad to see that there finally there's people who are, you know, in leadership positions in office who are stepping up, and like you just said a moment ago, how about what does California need? Let's, you know, instead of basing this on party lines, how about what's best for California? And I feel like that's what these people are finally doing and seeing, is that they're like, wait a second, this actually does make sense. We've had problems for several years now, and we need to start reforming. And so I appreciate that they're willing to, you know, say that they're not going to be like, this is an anti-Republican thing. And they're not going to be like, no, the Republicans just want this and this. They're like, we can't afford to do this anymore. It's time for change. So I do appreciate seeing that.
Yeah, I think it's, I want to tentatively or cautiously applaud Democrats who are coming out in support of Prop 36. I also think politically they might see the writing on the wall, and they might see that crime is a huge issue here in California, and that's something that they've been notoriously soft on. And I think they know that. I mean, they're not stupid. They have advisors, they have pollsters and stuff like that, and they're probably seeing like, yeah, Californians are worried about crime. Like it's probably one of the top 3: crime, homelessness, and affordability. And I think they probably say like, okay, the cool wave of being soft on crime is over, and now people want us to go swing back the different direction and get tough on crime. So I think that's one reason why they're probably doing this now. I think especially after Prop 36 made it on the ballot, they were like, okay, let's get behind this. Let's support it now so we can say like, yeah, we supported this. We supported tougher penalties. We want to clean up streets. And yeah, but I think in the other camp, I've said this before on the show. In the other camp with like Governor Newsom, why he is just hell bent on like not letting Prop 36 pass. I think it's well, I mean, he did a lot. Like let's just get that out there. Governor Newsom did a lot to try and stop Prop 36. He did backroom deals, back channel deals with the state legislature, with all these poison pill bills that they were trying to pass. At the last minute, they were trying to enact their own proposition, like a counter to Prop 36, which ultimately, like they pulled because there wasn't enough support. And now he went out and signed like 11 new retail theft bills, which are kind of like watered down bills. And I think it's mostly because people, he supported it. He supported it in 2014 as lieutenant governor. And politicians, golden rules, politicians never, ever, ever, ever like to admit that they were wrong on something.
Yeah.
Especially someone like Gavin Newsom. And if he's going to run for governor, or
President.
he already ran president, thank you. He's already run for governor, and he's won twice. Is he does not want to go back on Prop 47 and say, yeah, I was wrong. I should have been tougher. Like it had unintended consequences. I mean, that's really bad if you're running for president and you're like, yeah, I supported this proposition that basically turned our state into like a huge crime zone. And then 10 years later, after I saw the horrible destructive effects of it, then all of a sudden I changed my tune and I was like, oh, this is probably a bad idea. I probably should have seen this coming. So he's probably sticking to his guns on this so that it's not like ammunition against him down the road. And at least he can say like, oh, I signed all these bills into law. And look, I took all these tough stances on crime and we didn't even have to reform Prop 47. So that's why I think he's doing it.
Right.
That's my theory. What are your thoughts?
Right. No, I agree with you on that. And remember, he said he was going to come up with his own measure or bill or something that would solve all these issues. And he was like, this is unnecessary because I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And then the timing was very sus. Sorry to quote the children, sus. It was like all of a sudden it was clear Biden wasn't going to be able to run again, or he was not going to win or whatever. And Gavin kind of ran off and dropped his whole like, oh, I'm not going to worry about that. And like was running off to be with Camp Biden. And now obviously he's not going to be on the presidential, he's not, his name's not going to be on our ballot this time around. And so then it was just weird, the timing again. Like it was like, I'm going to do this, then dropped it and ran off to Biden. And now I don't even know what he's doing. New bills, I guess.
As far as I know, I think I saw he was not invited to speak at the DNC, but the lieutenant governor was.
He was not.
Elena, whatever her name
is.
is.
I know he was there last night. And I mean, that's fine. I don't like, of course he would be there, but he's also kind of not really been in California much for the last couple of years. He's been running off to do everything else. But I understand why he would be at the DNC. That would make sense. But I don't know what he's actually doing for California right now. Not doing. I honestly, there was so much talk and now there's not. And I need to go figure this out. Gavin, what is Gavin up to?
There's one more video regarding this, and then we have a little bit more, and then we got to get to the other proposition. So this is regarding San Jose Mayor and Governor Newsom split on Prop 36.
Okay.
And grab robberies, they've become a headache for Bay Area businesses and a hot button political issue. Well, today, Governor Newsom signed a package of bills and he cracked down on organized retail theft. He's trying to convince voters to reject a separate ballot measure that would go even further to punish property crime offenders. But a new poll from UC Berkeley and the LA Times shows 56% are backing Prop 36, which would impose stiffer sentences for repeat offenders. Amanda Harry looks at the heated politics over crime and punishment.
The debate on Prop 36 is heating up. The ballot measure would allow felony charges and increase sentences for theft and drug crimes. Some mayors across the state are in support of it, including San Jose Mayor Matt Mahan.
We see that we have an epidemic of unaddressed, untreated addiction. The answer is treatment.
Mayor Mahan says Prop 36 would help reduce retail crime by mandating that drug-addicted individuals committing crimes get help.
We have to have accountability for treatment. We have to give judges the tools they need to mandate that people get treatment.
Governor Gavin Newsom was in San Jose on Friday signing 10 bills addressing retail, property, and auto theft. He disagrees with the mayor, arguing that Mahan isn't seeing the full picture.
I would ask those that support it, particularly mayors, where are the treatment slots? Where are the beds? There are 22 counties. 22 counties in the state of California. This is not a local initiative, Prop 36. It's a statewide initiative. 22 counties don't have one residential treatment facility.
Mahan countered that there are thousands of treatment beds across the state, and they need to be filled with those who need them most, especially those who are making others unsafe by committing crimes because of their addiction. Yet Newsom insists Prop 36 won't reduce retail crime.
They're lying to you. That initiative has nothing to do with retail theft. This has everything to do with retail theft. That initiative is about going back to the 1980s and the war on drugs.
But Mahan says he knows from personal experience that treatment can help, but sometimes it can't be left up to the person to choose it.
I have a cousin who many years ago ended up on the streets right here in San Jose because of addiction. Nearly died on the streets. And it was only because of the aggressive intervention of family members who eventually forced him into treatment that he's alive today.
Mahan believes if a repeat offender has drug abuse issues, there needs to be consequences. He fully supports all 10 bills signed by Newsom, but he believes those bills are just a first step. He is inviting the governor back so he can show him firsthand what things are like in San Jose and how he believes Prop 36 would make a difference.
Welcome the governor to come back. I would love to take a walk with him through our downtown, along our creek, and have those same conversations and see what he thinks.
Prop 36 aims to overhaul another ballot measure, Prop 47, passed in 2014. That reduced punishments for theft crimes and nonviolent drug offenses.
State GOP lawmakers
All right. So Gavin Newsom standing arm in arm with Scott Wiener, right there with other members, Rob Bonta as well. So as we could see, there is this issue with Gavin Newsom. He doesn't want to admit that he was wrong on Prop 47 back in 2014, and yeah, that's usually what happens with politicians. Is that at the end of the day, they never want to admit that they're wrong. I thought it was interesting where he said that there are 22 counties without one residential treatment bed, and to me that makes me, oh, hey, welcome back.
Carry on.
I was like, did I exit out of your window as well? Anyway, as I was saying, Gavin Newsom arm in arm with Scott Wiener, one of our favorite legislators. I thought it was interesting where he said there's 22 counties in California that don't have a residential treatment bed, and I'm sitting here thinking, right, you're the governor up until now, so that sounds like a you problem. That sounds like you haven't done what you're supposed to under this current amount of, like, under the current laws. So what's your solution? but he's digging his heels in. He wants to dig his heels in on Prop 36 and oppose it as much as possible. Another thing that a theory that I think also, again, I think maybe this has something to do with it. I think he doesn't like the idea that there will probably be millions of Californians who vote in support of this, showing like a honest rebuke of his policies. Like, I think that doesn't bode well for him as well. So sorry, you were going to say something.
Well, going back to earlier this year, Prop 1. It was Prop 1. That was the homeless bond, $6 billion, something like that. Remember, you and I talked about the language in that prop, and I get that that's homeless and that's a different issue, but there was a lot of taking funds from local government and sending it to Sacramento, and that people that were opposed to it and like counties and whatnot that were opposed to this idea were saying we will have to close treatment centers, and the treatment centers are not just for homeless people. And so when he's like, there's not enough treatment centers in 22 counties, but it's like your whole Prop 1 that you pushed actually takes away money from local treatment centers. So
yeah,
it's like he just does one thing and doesn't think about how all the 10 things that he does actually affect each other and affect the state. That always baffles me.
Right. And I think he's doing this from a political standpoint. Doesn't want to admit that he was wrong in 2014. And that's basically it. And he doesn't want this black mark on his record. And he can't stand the thought that Californians are going to disagree with him on it. So tying it back to one of our current presidential candidates, if you don't remember, Kamala Harris was the Attorney General during this time in 2014. So she did not take a position on Prop 47, but she was part of crafting the title, which people said was kind of deceptive. That's what attorney generals do with ballot measures, so they were kind of aware about that. Law enforcement authorities also blamed Harris for not acknowledging that it would massively reduce DNA collection to solve crimes like rape and murder. After the law was enacted, the amount of DNA samples collected per month dropped from 15,000 to 5,000. Quote, if she was aware of the DNA issue, Harris could have exchanged some of the verbiage for the following 9 words: will curb law enforcement's authority to collect DNA samples. If she wasn't aware of the DNA issue, she was not doing her job. So,
which we've discussed before. There's always, she kind of always has this, well, I didn't do that. I didn't know that. That wasn't me. And it's like, but that was your department. That was your job. How did you not know? And if you continue to have these people under you, then you obviously are not good at hiring the right people. You're not good at placing the right people under you. So
yeah, you're running for the biggest executive job in the world. And if you don't know what's going on, then yeah, that's an issue of like
she's eating Doritos.
She's too worried about Doritos. All right, next proposition that we want to talk about. If you all remember, it was only a couple months ago that we had a whole episode about minimum wage laws in California. And if you think that was the end of it, if you think that was what they got and everyone was all excited, think again, because California Proposition 32 is looking to set the new minimum wage in California to $18 per hour. So a yes vote on Prop 32 supports increasing the state minimum wage to $18 per hour by 2026. So you got 2 years to get it up there.
Well,
and
is it 16 right now?
I think it's 16 right now, and then
it's supposed to at the first of the year go up to 1650. So what they're
it's going to increase with inflation. Is what they're calling.
But inflation's way down, as they're telling us. So
right, inflation's way down because it's not as high as it was the previous month. No vote opposes this ballot initiative, thereby maintaining the existing law, which was designed to increase the minimum wage to $15 per hour. Let's see. The ballot initiative would increase the state minimum wage to $18 an hour over several years. Like SB 3, the ballot initiative would increase the minimum wage at different speeds depending on whether an employer has 26 or more workers or 25 or less workers. For employers with 26 or more workers, the minimum wage would reach $18 on January 1st, 2025. For employers with 25 or less workers, the minimum wage would reach $18 on January 1st, 2026. So who supports it? Yes, on California Living Wage Act. So we're now getting into this whole living wage versus minimum wage. From 1996 to 2022, there were 28 minimum wage increase measures on the ballot. Voters approved 92.86% of them. That's across the country. That's not necessarily California. Fiscal impact, which I thought was really interesting. So usually when they do a proposition, the legislative analyst office will come out and say, like, here's our fiscal report or what we believe will happen. So that way you have an idea. Is it going to increase taxes? Is it going to increase spending, deficit, blah, blah, blah. It says unclear change in annual state and local tax revenues, likely between a loss of a couple $1 billion and a gain of a few $100 million. Increase in annual state and local government costs, likely between $500 million and a few $1 billion. So not good on that front. Lose revenue and everything else will be more expensive, which would be a shocker.
Yeah, that the cost of living goes up, and then that whole minimum wage is no longer a living wage, even though minimum wage was never supposed to be a living wage. And it's this fun little just circle of life.
They keep conflating living wage with minimum wage. So who do you think is the biggest supporter of this proposition?
The unions.
And specifically, who would that be?
Oh, I'm assuming we're talking about Lorena Gonzalez still.
Yep. Lorena Gonzalez Fletcher is the biggest supporter of this. Let's see. In support, they've raised $10.9 million. Opposition's only $10,000.
Why don't they just walk into places that pay minimum wage and start handing them, like, instead of this?
You could do a lot with $10 million, that's for sure.
Every time that we talk about how much money they raised for these things, I'm like, but that could have paid for what you're asking anyway.
Right. It could have, yeah. I mean, you're spending $10 million on this. Well, $10 million goes a long way for a lot of people working. So maybe, I don't know, create a fund or something that helps people. I'm trying to see who, there was a whole bunch of people who specifically top donors. Wow. Okay. Joseph and Sandberg, probably should have looked this up before. Joseph and Sandberg, he donated $10 million out of the $10.9 million. So whoever Joseph and Sandberg is, he really wants people to get $18 minimum wage.
Okay.
So now there is an article in East Bay Times regarding this, what's going on. Californians will vote on $18 minimum wage. Workers already want $25 and more. So 18 is not enough, is what they're saying. Unions in California have taken a different approach. They've won industry-specific wage floors for fast food, healthcare, and in some cities, hotels that are well above the statewide minimum. Fast food workers who got a raise to a minimum of $20 in April are seeking an inflationary bump for next year. In Los Angeles, hotel and airport workers are demanding a $25 minimum wage and a raise to $30 in time for the 2028 Olympics. Well, that's one way to do it. Is I can only see it now. Give us $30 right before the Olympics, or we'll all go on strike right before the Olympics because they're all part of the union. I can see it now. I can see the headlines now.
They also started accepting applications, I guess. I don't know if they're officially open, but they're talking about now you can volunteer with the Olympics, and I believe they're going to like 30,000-ish, maybe 45,000 volunteers who will. Now I get that. Okay, sorry, it's fly. I get that, like, a volunteer isn't going to go work at the McDonald's down the street from the Olympics. I understand that, but these people are like demanding this, pay us more while they're about to have probably a few 100,000 volunteers willing to do a lot of work, which will include like at these hotels and the hospitalities and checking in people and like, you know, kind of making sure everything is flowing. And so that's interesting to me. I was just reading about that today. And so I was like thinking, oh, these people are demanding $30 right before the Olympics, but yet they're going to open it for tens of thousands of volunteers. So that's kind of interesting to me because it's like, oh, we can get someone to almost do your job for free, at least in the hospitality environment.
Yeah, it's they're gonna make money on all of the poor volunteers who just want to be a part of the Olympics, and then everybody who will blackmail LA into paying them for working at the Olympics. So
I have a question because the fast food just went up to $18 an hour, you know, earlier this year.
$20.
20.
Right.
Okay. So are they now going to demand more because now they're going to be lower? And there was the argument for, I forget, was something about their working conditions or something like that. And therefore they deserve more. And so if now they're going to be lower than these other industries, are we going to see that? Like, okay, so now it's going to be $29 an hour to work at a fast food place because minimum wage is 25. I know that this is not pushing for 25, but this is what people are pushing for.
Yeah, this is what the restaurants are already asking.
It was just going to be.
So they are admitting implicitly that between April, which is when this law went into effect, and now, which is 4.5 months, that inflation has risen that much that they need to get a bump to $25 an hour. But I thought Biden cured inflation. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought Kamala and Biden fixed inflation.
They did.
They still need
They left
inflationary
California
numbers.
behind. I mean,
right.
We're just over here fending for ourselves.
Kamala, who's from California, or was not from California, but lived in California, was a politician. She just forgot about California. She cured inflation everywhere. It's kind of like gas prices. Somehow, all the oil companies only gouge California, not everybody else in the country. Weird how that happens.
So I'm not making jokes, but like this passes, and then the fast food workers are like, we want more money, and of course they're unionized now, right? So then the unions are going to go and fight for that, and then so in like 24 months, come 2026, we're paying $30 for a cheeseburger and fries at In-N-Out, and this is inflation. How do people not understand? How do our politicians not understand basic economics? It's very frustrating.
Probably because none of them have ever picked up an economics book in their life.
But didn't they have to go to school? Didn't they go
as
through
a poli-sci major myself, we were never required to take any economics courses. So all those poli-sci majors who ended up in legislative offices, campaign offices, never took an economics course. I can tell you firsthand. None of them understand what economics is. So I think it should be required reading if you're going to go into politics.
Well, it's required at high school, and I assumed it was a part of general ed in college. Me, who dropped out, doesn't know these things.
Was it part? I don't remember. I don't think there was an economics course that was required for us. It wasn't like our general ed education.
Sorry, that's getting off topic, but
But yeah, from my experience, poli-sci majors, we never took an economics course. I think it was offered, but a lot of people don't take it. Let's see. The article goes on to say the most powerful proponent, the California Labor Federation, which represents 2.3 million union members, isn't yet sure how much effort it's going to put toward passing the measure. While the Federation was not involved in qualifying the measure, it endorsed it in July and plans to include it on other statewide campaign materials. Quote, I just don't know how much opposition there will be, quite honestly, said Labor Federation President Lorena Gonzalez. Gonzalez sees the ballot measure as a, quote, way to move things forward, end quote, at a time lawmakers are unlikely to take up the minimum wage. Quote, when we jumped to $15 and did it legislatively, that was really profound, end quote, she said. But $18 today? Sure, it makes a difference, she said, but it's not really a living wage.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
That's not the point of a minimum wage to be a living wage. So but she conflates all that stuff, what a living wage and a minimum wage is. Again, this is where, and again, not to get really off on economics, but I mean, if there are different fast food, and we're going to keep using the fast food example. If there are different fast food places where you can choose to go and start working, and In-N-Out starts you, I remember In-N-Out used to start you like $10 an hour when I was in college. And that was like, wow, $10 an hour, you got paid, double digits. That's incredible. But then there were other fast food restaurants that only paid you $7 an hour. And if you had your choice and you could apply to one of them and you wanted to work for one of them, wouldn't it behoove the businesses to try and attract the best talent by being competitive with their wages? And by, that's sort of the point, I guess their argument for a minimum wage is that it at least creates a floor that you can't go below, but at least you can go higher than it and you can be competitive and try and attract some of the best talent. And I think it worked for In-N-Out. I mean, their staff is always super friendly. They're always helpful. They're working their butts off. So that seemed to work to me. Like there was a discrepancy between the quality you're getting at In-N-Out versus McDonald's. Same thing with Chick-fil-A. I imagine they pay Chick-fil-A better and they, their staff is much more helpful and nicer. But I think the bigger argument here about minimum wage that most people don't even think about is that it does chop off the ladder at the bottom where people can enter into the workforce, right? Like now, I think we talked about on this podcast how like your daughter wanted to go work somewhere, but it's like it's hard to get a fast food job.
She stopped trying. Honestly,
she stopped trying because
I'm like, you're 16, calm. It's okay. Like it's not.
I mean,
possible.
good on her that she wanted to get a job and make money, but it's just it cuts off people who want to enter the workforce as like their first job, or someone who just needs a job to like make ends meet. Like it chops off that ladder at the bottom and hurts the people that they think that they're helping when you do a minimum wage. So, and it also takes away the ability for people to barter for how much they want to be paid.
Well, right. And so what she was told, which we talked about, is like, I'm sorry, we're not hiring anyone under 18. We're letting people go. And we're cutting back hours. So when you have somebody who maybe doesn't have a lot of qualifications and they're working at a fast food place, McDonald's, whatever, but maybe they're working 40 hours a week and get benefits. Now their hours are cut and they no longer qualify for benefits because they're not a full-time employee.
Right.
So we've said, like, congratulations on your raise. Oh, sorry about your job loss. Sorry about you don't have benefits anymore. I'm sorry that your sick child, you can't afford their medication anymore.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing.
Your hours because it's too expensive. And you may have relied on it every month and said, okay, this is how much I get paid every month. But now they're cutting hours, which I pulled an article from MSN.com, but this is probably from someone else. I can't imagine it's from MSN. It's from MoneyWise. It says, we cut where we can. California restaurants cut staff hours due to the minimum wage hike. Is the new hourly wage really helping restaurant workers? Lawrence Chang and his family own 7 Wendy's locations south of Los Angeles, but this busy summer season, he has fewer staff clocking in to help him. Chang told the Associated Press he's been cutting his staff's hours due to the increase in California's minimum wage for fast food workers, which jumped from $16 to $20 per hour. We just kind of cut where we can. I schedule one less person, then I come in for that time that I didn't schedule, and I work that hour. Let's see. Juan Carlos Chacon, a owner of 9 Jersey Mikes in Los Angeles, who says the labor accounts for about 35% of his total cost. With the minimum wage hike, he's not only cut staff, but also passed some of the additional labor costs onto his customers. I've been in the business for 25 years, and I've never had to increase the amount of pricing that I did in the past. I did this past time in April. California soft serve chain Foster's Freeze had to close one of its stores because it couldn't afford to pay workers after the increase. We would have rather stayed at the wage that we did before just because now we don't have a job, says one employee. was Monica Navarro, former assistant general manager at the Foster Freeze location. So again, yeah, it's not really necessarily helping if you're cutting people's hours or they're just getting straight up fired. Like that's not really helping anybody there, Lorena Gonzalez, but I'm sure you'll use it to grow your union membership. So, any final thoughts on raising the minimum wage in California?
No.
All right, last one, which I don't think we have to go too much into, but we want to mention it because we're trying to cover all of them so that you know. This is California Proposition 2, Public Education Facilities Bond Measure. Okay, just to start off, I know I said I would never tell you how to vote. My personal mantra whenever I see any proposition, this is just me, you can decide what you want. The minute I see the word it approves a bond, I immediately vote no, because bonds equal debt. And California, as broke as we are, does not need to take out any more debt. So a yes vote supports issuing $10 billion in bonds to fund construction and modernization of public education facilities. It would issue $10 billion bonds with $8.5 billion dedicated to the elementary and secondary educational facilities and $1.5 billion for community college facilities. Proposition 2 would make changes to the formula used to determine the amount each district is required to contribute to be eligible to receive state funding from the bond revenue. The measure would have required the state government to cover between 50 and 55% of construction project costs and 60 to 65% of modernization costs. What is our bond capacity? We are currently repaying an estimated $80 billion in bonded debt, and it's authorized to sell an outstanding $35 billion in bonds. So we can't endlessly borrow, because remember, states are not the federal government. They just can't borrow and borrow and borrow and go, trillions of dollars in debt. States sort of have to keep their budgets balanced. So with the passage of Prop 1 this year, and now they want to pass this, there's going to be less overhead for taking out bonds, which, we need. It's good to have. Let's put it this way. If it's like your personal household, some people have like that emergency credit card that they're like, we only use it in case of emergency. Like that's maybe the best argument for bonds. I don't believe that the state should take on more debt. But if we cap out or we max out our bond capacity, that's not good. If we ever need in the future, we're still paying off debt and we don't have any bond capacity. So supporters, shocker, California Federation of Teachers and the California Labor Federation, our friend Lorena Gonzalez.
I wonder why the labor wants it on this.
Yeah, I wonder why. This I thought was absolutely hilarious. The top donors in support. You ready for this? Who would you think are the top donors in support of a bond for improving schools improving school facilities?
I would assume anyone who can get kickbacks from this, possibly the CTA and then labor unions. But I am also thinking I'm wrong based on how you introduce this.
The top 5 are all construction companies.
Okay.
So the top 5 are DLR Group, who donated $100,000, Neff Construction $80,000, Erickson Hall Construction $60,000, Tilden Coil Constructors Inc. $60,000, and Murdoch Walrath and Holmes $50,000. So not one actual teachers union or anybody who's involved in, but construction companies are lining up, because who wouldn't want to get in line for $10 billion in bond payments for projects?
Right.
So
absolutely. And I want to ask something about this. It's kind of multi-question, and stop me if I'm wrong, because this bond would mean that so schools would submit their projects, the government would approve them, and then the government would then pay for like between 50 to 60% of the construction, and then the local school district has to kick in the other 40-50%. Is from what I understand. That comes from property taxes. Okay.
Right.
So property taxes can only increase, or I'm sorry, there's like a cap. It's like property tax is like 1%, I think.
Right.
And they can't just, charge you 3%. But what they can do is the county decides how much your house is worth every year and then charges you your property taxes based on that. I noticed mine have been increasing like crazy. Like, I was looking it over, and you're allowed to contest this, I guess, and I didn't know that. And I remember, like, earlier this year, I called my mom, and I'm like, "How are my property taxes getting, like, when we bought the house to this?" And yes, the value of my home has gone up. I know that, but at the same time, it seems like the county assessor would have the power to then just like, oh, let's just increase all the value of all these homes. And now that 1%, we're getting X amount more dollars to fund these projects. And so now the value of your home keeps going up, which yay. But then on the other hand, everyone who's like, California's unaffordable. Well, yeah. And property. Yeah. So am I wrong? Am I thinking, are you understanding what I'm saying? Because I'm not being very articulate, but it just seems like.
Yeah, I think maybe that's the next proposition episode, is we talk about the proposition regarding taxes and the issue. There was one proposition that is currently under court ruling. But yeah, it involves like Prop 13, and they've been trying to like nitpick at Prop 13 forever. So, every year they're trying to like cut back or eliminate Prop 13. So I imagine if they ever succeed in getting Prop 13 done away with, which if they get rid of Prop 13, I think that might be the nail in the coffin for like the middle class here in California, because no one would be able to afford like their property taxes based on their current values. It would just drive people towards the exit. Yeah, and I mean, if they get rid of Prop 13, property taxes go up. There's more money. They can start to kick in for these construction programs. So, we'll see. I know that every year they try and chip away at Prop 13. But to answer your question, I think there has to be an objective reasoning for your valuation. I don't think the county can just do it arbitrarily. I don't think they can just be like, it's worth $1 million when it was worth $500,000 a year before. So we'll see how it kind of shakes out. But regarding this proposition, yeah, I mean, it's a ton of money. It's $10 billion that's going to school construction, and construction companies are all salivating and lining up to make that sweet government contract money. And all the, unions who supply the construction workers, like Lorena Gonzalez champions, they're going to line up too. They're all going to want to get a piece of this. So it's more pigs at the trough, is in my opinion, regarding this. And again, this is my personal opinion. I'm not telling anybody how to vote. Please go do your own research.
Well, yeah, and buildings have to go through upgrades. Right. We don't like kids are starting. A lot of kids have started school this week and last week, and it's like the hottest week of the year so far here in California, Southern California. And, broken AC, broken windows, ventilation, all like that will absolutely affect kids' health and their ability to learn at school, and being miserable. And absolutely, these buildings need, plumbing has to be updated. Things have to be replaced. Yeah. Wear and tear is normal.
Yeah. I'm not arguing that. Sure, schools need to update. They can't stay the same forever. I mean, I feel like some schools got built in like the 40s or 50s, and then they stayed that way for like 40 years, and they never got like updated.
Right. But another thing that can absolutely happen with this is that then the construction companies awarded these projects inflate the prices of the construction. It's going to take 3 months and this much in labor and this much in materials, when it really could be half that and stuff.
Right.
So,
yeah. And then the vicious cycle continues all over again, because then those construction companies, who I imagine the reason they're donating so much money is because they would be the first in line to get these jobs. And then the cycle continues, because the next time something comes up and they need their money, they'll kick back more money, and it'll just keep going around and around. That's the pigs at the trough of Sacramento and how it works. Someone actually said in the chat regarding the minimum wage, my daughter works for Chick-fil-A and was working 20 hours a week and now only 10 to 12 because the manager didn't want to fire anyone. But now he's hired more workers that work for fewer hours. So
Okay.
That's what happens.
Very sad.
So those are the unintended consequences of economic decisions by politicians. Oh my gosh, it was a good book. I'm just going to recommend it. And oh gosh, now I can't remember the name of the book. Oh gosh.
Is it the economics of one lesson? I know you.
Yes, I've mentioned that before. Thank you. It's if you want to read exactly like what this is, this theory about politicians, why they don't understand this, Economics in One Lesson is an absolutely fantastic book. I think it's Henry Hazlitt. You can go on Mises.org. There's a free like ebook, so you can just like go download it for free. Mises.org has a ton of really great books anyway for free. Anatomy of the State is another one.
I actually bought that book before I ever even knew you, and then you recommended it. I was like, hey, I have that book.
It's a great book. You read it and it kind of opens your eyes and you're like, wow, politicians really have no idea what they're doing when it comes to economics. But basically the theory is that everything has a reaction and people don't factor in that reaction or the causation of what happens down the line. And minimum wage is a perfect example. So, all right. We covered a lot tonight. That was 3 propositions out of the 10. We're going to plow our way through the rest of them, over the next couple weeks leading up to the election, so that way you guys can get super informed. And like I said, if you have any questions, Camille's DMs are wide open on Instagram, so just go ask her. No, you can message me as well if you have any questions.
You don't give my Instagram a shout out, so they can't even message me. So
well, it's right there if you're watching the video, it's at camille.bethany. So go there. So if you have any questions,
I really do try to be helpful. Sorry, I was being sarcastic, but I do also defer to you often. So.
Yeah, I try to respond to everybody as much as possible. So my DMs, I'm not just kind of like blanketly looking. I try and respond to everybody and give feedback. All right, went a little bit over our normal hour, but hey, we need to talk about this stuff. There's a lot to talk about, and it's only going to get crazier with the election coming up in November. So any final thoughts before we sign off?
No.
Okay.
Thanks for tuning in. I know we're getting very long-winded lately.
Yeah. Well, thank you for, maybe it's 2 car rides or 2 commutes, this podcast now. Break it up into 2 commutes, like morning commute and then come back in the afternoon. All right. As we always finish every show, make sure you like, share, subscribe, review, hit that notification bell on everything from Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, whatever, X, whatever they're calling it now. Make sure you get notified of what's happening. We're on Rumble as well. Subscribe, like, share, review, hit the notification bell, all that stuff. Leave a comment. That always helps with the algorithm, helps more people find us. And the best and absolute free way to support this show is to share it with someone who probably has a bunch of questions about propositions just like you do if you're listening to this. So if they have questions about propositions, send them this way, specifically on these propositions. So until the next one, we'll see you later. Have a good night.